Welcome back to another episode of Pick Up the Pace with Magic and Anaru. Our special guest is Bailey Mackey, who was brought up in the small town of Kaiti, just outside of Gisborne, and is a fluent speaker of Te Reo Māori. He is a former Ngāti Porou East Coast rugby player who was a part of their first ever Division 3 championship season in 1999.
He is an award-winning producer, writer and director. Some of his famous sporting shows include the Maori TV sports show Code, the TV series Beneath the Maori Moon, documenting the history of the Maori All Blacks, the Amazon Prime series All or Nothing, New Zealand All Blacks, and Piti's Tiki Tour.
He is co-founder and CEO of Pango Productions Limited. He uses his body of work to positively influence the way the world perceives Maori people and culture. He is president of the Ngāti Porou East Coast Rugby Union, and earlier this month was elected onto the New Zealand Rugby Union Board. Tūhoi momo kai, momo tangata ki te pō, e te uri o ngai tūhoi, kei te mihi. Te kotahi nā turahiri, ripo ana te moana, e te uri o rongo whakata, kei te mihi. E wiwi he Ngāti, he whanoke e te uri o Ngāti Porou, kei te mihi. O tirai te rangatira o te ao pāpāhoa. No mai, and welcome to the Pick Up the Pace podcast, Bailey Mackey.
Hoi anō, kia ora tātou, I roto i ngā tini āhuatanga o te wā, nōku te honori, te peka mai te kōrero tahi I tēnei ata. Thank you very much for having me on. That was a pretty good intro and summation, I guess, of my career. I'm not sure we've got anything to talk about after the intro now. So.
Awesome, Bailey. Hey, you were brought up by your grandparents in Kaiti on the outskirts of Gisborne. Your grandfather was a 28th Māori Battalion veteran, a shearer, and was a grandnephew of Sir Apirana Ngata. Your grandmother was a sewing machinist and a pretty staunch unionist. Can you tell us what life was like growing up with your grandparents?
What a really good question to start with, because I guess my grandfather, not many people probably realise, Apirana Ngata was part of the Tory party, which I guess was the precursor to the National Party. And look, they, in the late 70s and early 80s, I guess, was the era of Muldoon. And look, a lot of farming subsidies. So my grandfather was clearly, I guess, on that side of the fence, and my grandmother was Labour. And I always remember growing up, and every morning the nature of our day would be determined by the conversation at our breakfast table. And I used to wake up to my grandparents either laughing or arguing in Māori. And often it had to do with kind of the political divide that existed philosophically between my grandparents. And so I guess from an early age was always kind of had that in my upbringing. Not that I'd ever be interested in politics, but I think what it does though is it teaches you from an early age to form an opinion on things, what side, how you look at the world. And I guess that's probably shaped a lot of who I am today.
Bailey, you grew up speaking English and Te Reo Māori. How important is Te Reo Māori to you?
Oh, Te Reo Māori is everything. Look, I think it's a foundation of my identity. Identity is a foundation of any person. So it's probably been the most important guiding element in my life. And whenever I've got lost, I think it's when I've had a separation away from Te Reo, me ona tikanga, Te Reo and its many protocols and customs. So I think it's definitely been a guiding force in my life.
You went to Gisborne Boys High School and committed yourself to the Manu Kōrero National Speech Competition, where your passion for broadcasting was born. How would you describe your time at high school?
I guess my passion was born probably a little bit before that, when I was at Kaiti School, I received most improved forward, most improved player sort of trophy. And it was a little Pepsi can that you could listen to. It was a radio in the shape of a Pepsi can. And at night I used to listen to the radio under my blankets while my grandfather were asleep. And I kind of fell in love with the medium in terms of, it amazed me that somebody could be sitting in a studio miles away and having this intimate conversation with you. So that's where it started. I think it started to, we started honing that craft in the Manu Kōrero, the Māori National Speech Contest, which happened kind of in my high school years. So, look, I obviously had an amazing time through that, and it gave me confidence as a storyteller. I'm a big believer that, storytelling is a big part of society, and we probably don't give it the credence it deserves.
You played rugby for Ngāti Porou East Coast when winning their first Division 3 championship in 1999. Can you talk us through that fairy tale season?
Yeah, I think, look, probably one of the most amazing times of my life, and for the people that are old enough to remember, is this is a team that in 1999 won Team of the Year at the New Zealand, at the Steinlager Awards, beating the All Blacks, Auckland. Coach of the Year, again beating the All Blacks, Auckland, Nelson Bays, who'd won the second division. So look, I think, that's in the pre-social media era, the impact that team had on kind of the rugby fabric. It was also the same year we got knocked out of the Rugby World Cup by the French in the semi-final. So I think, look, there was probably a swing back towards grassroots, and professional rugby was probably only 4 years old then, or 3 years old then. So I think there was definitely some certain views about, we need to get back to grassroots and that type of thing. But ultimately, the Ngāti Porou East Coast team was, I guess, the ultimate amalgam of a coach, Joe McClutchie, who started believing in locals that had never been kind of given the time of day by other coaches. So, pig hunters, forestry workers that just never got a go in the team previously, like Tyrone Delamere and Koro Ngārimu, and also the returning home of players that had played the game at a fairly significant level, who were Ngāti Porou, and that's like Wirihana Raihania, who was the captain, his brother Horace Lewis, to name a few. And then over time, Manu Flutie and Marty Lloyd, and these players had all played at least second division, some first division, and returned home back to the coast. So I think you got a real good mixture. I remember Joe McClutchie, we had a whanau, and look, his big thing was whakapapa and ensuring that, Magic, you're from Timaru, you're from South Canterbury. When I remember travelling down there, and Joe McClutchie giving us the whakapapa between Ngāti Porou and Ngaitahu, and basically, giving us an example of that actually we had ties beyond the rugby field to all these teams around the country. And then it was just incumbent on us to go out and smash them, to honour that whakapapa.
You started your broadcasting career at Radio Ngāti Porou in Ruatoria, and then moved to Auckland and got your first big gig as a TV reporter on Te Karere, which is the Māori news here in New Zealand. And there's a bit of a story about that. Can you fill us in about the journey you took to get that job?
Well, I think, that period was probably the most significant time of my life, because my two greatest passions, broadcasting and rugby, were happening at the same time. I got a job at Radio Ngāti Porou, pretty much, there's not much else to do in Ruatoria. And then while I was there, Eden Aridi, who is now running Radio Ngāti Porou, was working at TVNZ and encouraged me to apply for a job. I got a job. I applied for the job. There were, I think, 20-something CVs, and the producer rings me and tells me that I haven't, that they've shortlisted 3 people. I wasn't one of them, and but I wrote a really creative cover letter, and they would give me an interview anyway. So I hitchhiked up. I was living in Tiki Tiki at the time. I hitchhiked to Auckland, and when I got near Auckland, I rang Rua Tipuki, who played for the Blues, and ended up meeting him in the car park and borrowing his clothes that were too small for me because he's obviously a short ass, and ended up getting the job. But the thing was, they were only after one reporter, and I know that Julian Wilcox was the other dude that I was up against, and they gave us both the job. So, look, forever grateful to Whitey Stafford, who was the producer, and Tinny Molyneux, who I guess gave me my break. Could see that I had some talent.
You had a short stint at writing for the New Zealand soap opera Shortland Street for becoming a reporter for TV3 Sports Department. What were some of the sports interviews that stand out for you?
I remember Anna Kournikova was the one. She was kind of one of the biggest names in women's tennis at the time. She came to New Zealand, and Tony Beach had pissed her off, like at a press conference or something the day before. I think kept asking her out or something, and I went I went along, and like she just brushed me. So it wasn't the best experience. Look, I mean, TV3 was an amazing time for me because it gave me an insight into kind of the mainstream media and how sports organizations work from a media perspective, and I guess the role that rugby plays in dominating a lot of the headlines, and both good and bad. But look, I got to work with some awesome people there, Clint Brown and Hamish Mackay and Sean Summerfield, Rachel Smalley and Michelle Pickles were also there. So it was a really cool time. And what I enjoyed about TV3, a little bit like the East Coast of TV, they were the underdog, and they had less resources than TVNZ, but used to go out, and every day everybody used to give it their all to try and get one over TVNZ.
You then became head of sport for Maori TV. Can you tell us about the major sport content you managed to get on Maori TV during your time, and how?
Yeah, just a funny story on TV3 is when I was at TV3, the big boss was Brett Impey, who's the chair of New Zealand Rugby now. So, and he was way up. I was like a junior sports reporter. So, but it was a good man back then, and he's a good man now. So, and then I was at Maori TV. And look, it was kind of my first real management role, and I kind of knew that, you know, sport meant a lot to our audience. Sport meant a lot to Māori, and kind of put together a really simple strategy of putting together kind of the pillars of what a sports department could look like. And I knew we needed a signature show, which was Code. And so, look, I legitimately, I rang Tāwara and Nico first, and then I knew that he needed we needed another host. So we both rang Jenny May Coffin, then we rang Matua Parkinson, and Slade McFarlane initially, and then it ended up being Glenn Osborne, God save us all. But yeah, so I knew that was important. Then I knew live sport was also going to be important as well. So we went out and secured some pretty cool rights. We were able to do free-to-air rugby league, Kiwis. We did some really cool stuff with the Bartercard Cup. We played Monday night footy. What else did we do? We played, we got the Breakers. We did deals with David Tua. We got Rugby World Cup 2011, but also some rights on 207. What else was there? Oh, and I'll tell you one really cool one was the Tall Blacks. TVNZ had broadcast games 1 and 2 of the Al Ramsey Shield, which is the shield that the Tall Blacks play the Boomers for, and it was 1-1. But then the third game was in Melbourne, and they didn't have the rights or the resource to be able to cover it. So we were able to secure the funding, secure the rights, put together an OB in 32 hours. So that was a pretty special time as well.
I just touched on Code before. It was one of the highest rating shows and also won an New Zealand Sports Award for Best Sports Program. So how did Code actually all come about and what made it so successful? You mentioned Matua Parkinson before, Glenn Osborne, and lots of likes.
Yeah, I remember reading somewhere that when ESPN launched, they didn't have any sports rights, but nobody could stop them from talking about sports. And I think the key to any sport is its survivability outside of just its live offering. Look, we've got a podcast. It's a rugby dedicated podcast because, look, we're three rugby tragics. And along with that kind of fanaticism is a level of engagement with an audience. So Code was that. We didn't have any rights, but no one could stop us from being, funny, creative, and we did some really cool stuff. And I'm really proud of what Code did, both in its early days for Maori TV, but I guess in terms of the consciousness of putting Maori TV on the map, and just like the footy show that had the saying, "That's gold," I always remembered, I was really keen for us to get one, and a friend of mine, Pere Jury, would always send me an email and end it with "Mean Māori," and then I suggested to Matua Parkinson and Glenn Osborne that when they're in the field, they start using "Mean Māori Mean," and in its time, it just caught on and became, the catch cry of the show, and then obviously the catch cry of the channel.
So Julie Christie, one of New Zealand's most successful TV producers, bought your company, Black Ink, and you then created the GC, which was a popular primetime reality show following the lives of a group of young Māori living in the Gold Coast. What did you learn from Julie, and what does it take to produce a successful reality TV show?
Can I ask, have you guys got an auto cue reading all these? This is what I learned. Look, I learned that it's show business, not show charity, and that you've got to that there is a certain level of commercial acumen that's needed to survive in the content game. So that's the biggie. Look, what did I learn in terms of what I learned about producing a successful TV show? A lot. And what does it take? Look, I think one of the big things I think in content is relevancy. Like, how do you make something relevant? I think, I think if you launched the GC now, it wouldn't get the same amount of views as it did when it launched, because I think it was relevant to that time. I think it's the same with any products we release. We've got to keep the customer at the forefront of what we're doing. I'm sure you, like most rugby fans, have views on what way we should take the competition design. So I think that needs to be understood in whatever we come up with.
You then went on to produce a number of productions, but one that stood out for us was Beneath the Māori Moon, which was a 15-part series about the history of Maori rugby, and it won another Maori Sports Award in 2010. What did it take to put this masterpiece together, Bailey?
It won this. But oh man, to be afforded the opportunity to do a documentary series on the history of Maori rugby was amazing. And it was really tough because you kind of had to figure out what was your way into that story. So what we did was we actually put together a series based on different things. So there was whakapapa or whanau, there was war, because war had been such an impacting part, there was professionalism, there was, help me out here boys, I can't remember, it's 10 years ago, but there, we put together different themes for different shows. And I think, look, that was an important way to view it, because, I mean, we did one around apartheid and the impact of it on us, but it was amazing. And, you know, I got to, interview some incredible contributors to that story. So forever be grateful for that opportunity.
You were one of the executive producers of All or Nothing, New Zealand All Blacks, which was the biggest documentary series in New Zealand history and screened in 200 plus countries via Amazon Prime. Can you talk a little bit more about the role you played in this production?
Yeah, look, I was the showrunner, so effectively I was the hands-on executive producer. And so there were other executive producers, but I was the one that was kind of there every day, both with the team when we were filming or when they travelled overseas. So, so look, again, really fortunate, probably similar to Beneath the Māori Moon, in the right place at the right time, wearing the right clothes, and that allowed me to do that. And, you know, it's interesting, like I think as a rugby tragic who's a program maker, to be given the opportunity to do both those stories is mind-blowing. All I want to do now is probably the Ngāti Porou East Coast inside that, and maybe follow Jose Gear when he does that next year. I'm not actually sure I can do that anymore now that I'm on New Zealand Rugby, probably not. So.
You're the co-founder and CEO of Pango Productions, which has produced a number of shows, including the award-winning Pity's Tiki Tour. Can you tell us how this show came about, and what are some of the other Pango shows that have stood out for you?
Pity's Tiki Tour was interesting because because Pity's a big diver, so, and I've always known that, and I was like, man, when he was at the Blues, I went and saw him. I said, bro, I reckon you know, we could get a TV show going. He was like, yeah, go and pitch it to Maori TV. So I went to go and pitch it to Maori TV, and I didn't realize, like, about 2 hours before, the person I was pitching to was like, it was just on the news that Pity's signed to go to London Welsh. So I was like, so look, you know, I think Pity went to London Welsh, what, in 2012, 2013 probably. And so I think, or maybe, yeah, 2013, 2014. So it kind of had to wait till he came back. I visited him in France when after he'd been with London Welsh. I think he went to INX, and then ended up in Narbonne. So I visited him in Narbonne and sort of said, look, if he was coming back, then I'd love to pitch it again. So we did, and I think this is the award we won for it last year. But at the heart of Pity's Tiki Tour is a national hero, his love letter to Aotearoa. We live in paradise, we live in the most beautiful country in the world, and he, look, it didn't really dawn on me until we started going to some of these small towns there, you know, just the impact of having someone like Pau or Pity in their community. He's a real low-key, humble dude who, you know, on his day was one of the best in the world at what he did, and everyone will remember what he did in 2011. And he's got a big heart for Aotearoa, big heart for our culture, but he's also got a big heart for people. So that's kind of how that show came about. I guess other shows we've had, you know, include Sidewalk Karaoke, Spiky Gold Hunters, which is about kina diving. So kina divers down in the South Island, and I mean we've, you know, Marae on a Sunday morning, We've got a new animation coming out called The Exceptional Squad, amongst a host of others.
So you've been the president of the Ngāti Porou East Coast Rugby Union since 2018. It's been a rough few years results-wise. As president, what are your goals and aspirations for Ngāti Porou East Coast Rugby in the next few years?
Unfortunately, one of the tough parts of being on the New Zealand Rugby Board is I had to give up my presidency of Ngāti Porou East Coast. So, look, rugby's a religion on the coast, and there's a saying that kind of sermon is Saturday 2 o'clock at the different rugby clubs up and down the coast. So it's a unifier. When it's good, it's a unifier. When it's bad, I think it can be a divisive element. For the most part in our history, it's been a unifier. So I think my aspirations are that it can continue to be a community development mechanism. The rugby club is the hub of a lot of social activity on the coast, and I'd like it to remain that way. So that's why got involved and got back helping out Ngāti Porou East Coast. So, and as you say, 6 years without a win, it hasn't been the most enjoyable experience. But the reality is during that time and under the stewardship of Kushla Tanaire Manuel, there's been some really awesome things happen in terms of growth in the women's game. We have 8 registered clubs for this year's competition, which is the most for a number of years. Hopefully that stays the same post-COVID. So look, there's some cool things happening. We managed to convince Jose Gear to come back and coach the Heartland team, and I know that the boys were really keen on that, and there'd already been a couple of whanau, and there was real positive vibe around Heartland. So look, hopefully that elusive win won't be too far away for the Sky Blue.
So as you mentioned, Jose Gear, the new coach of Ngāti Porou East Coast. Zach Guilford played for them last year, and Nihi Mildaskata trained with them during his road to recovery. You think we'll see more current and former All Blacks, bro, taking the field for Ngāti Porou East Coast?
Look, I hope so. Here's the thing: is I think it's a unique team in that it is genuinely a team that people want to play for the jersey, or people want to play for the experience. I mean, on top of Zach, we had people like Mitchell Croswell, Hakarangi Gisborne, who had played a pretty significant amount of rugby, who were Ngāti Porou, who wanted to come home. So I think we have that going for us, and it is a team like no other, and the only kind of strongly iwi affiliated provincial union in the country. And I think it adds a unique flavour to Heartland and indeed the wider New Zealand rugby landscape.
As we mentioned before, you were elected to the New Zealand Rugby Union Board and became the second Māori on the board, joining Farah Palmer. You are also the first ever board member from Ngāti Porou. So what are your hopes and aspirations for our game here in Aotearoa, and what are some key changes you want to see now and in the future?
I think just a little correction, I think. So Jennifer Kerr, who also got on the same time as me, is also Māori. So there's at least 3 of us, and one other may have Māori as well. But obviously, and then we're joined by Michael Jones, who's Samoan, and Bill Osborne, who's the president. So he's obviously Māori as well. Look, what are my aspirations? At one end, not too dissimilar to what I said about Ngāti Porou East Coast. I think rugby has a real role to play in the community development space. And then, look, I hope to bring some acumen in regards to increasing the commercial potential of the game, the brand, its products. So look, I think it's no secret we're in some pretty challenging times, and we there's a lot in front of us. You know, I've come in to the board at a time like no other. So I'm pretty stoked to be in there. Got a lot to learn, but also got a lot to give. So I'm really keen to, you know, kind of roll the sleeves up. I don't have any sleeves, but if I did, then I'd roll them up, and looking forward to getting stuck in.
Hey, what's your best advice for anyone interested in producing their own TV show, especially a young tamariki coming up through the ranks in there? What sort of some tips you can give them?
I think there are so many ways that you can produce content now that all I'd say is just start. I mean, you boys have just started. You've got a podcast. I've seen some of the people that you've had on your podcast. Incredible, like you know, Tim, Steve Hansen, and we had Wayne Smith too, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Crazy. Like those dudes are, you know, such big contributors to the game. So I think just start. You know, you have phones, you have laptops. In my day, I went through iwi radio, so those are kind of the tools that were available to me at the time. But I just actually think just start and just create and kind of hold on to that truth and that authenticity of who you are.
Mm. How has your Te Reo Maori skills helped you get to where you are today?
Oh, bro, they've been everything. Look, I've kind of quite often, you know, like early on in my career, they got me in the door. But once you're in the door, like, you know, what you do when you're inside is probably the most important thing. So, no, it's been everything. I'm so grateful to our language. I'm so grateful to guess my grandparents and just lucky that I grew up with Te Reo being such a prevalent part of who we were. I mean, look, my grandparents were obviously they didn't speak it to us because for them it was their language. So you know, it was the first language spoken in the house, but it took me to go to high school to kind of sharpen those skills. But look, the seed was already there.
One of the key components to life, Bailey, is whanau. How's whanau support been to you throughout your career?
Look, you know, my family are everything. Like I come from a sharing family, so my dad was a shearer. All my uncles and aunties worked in the shearing sheds. So I guess, you know, kind of our sort of immediate circle of friends and family and that were from the shearing shed. So it was a work hard, play hard mentality. At times a pretty transient lifestyle, so kind of had to hone a certain amount of survival skills to be able to cope with that. But I do think that what it gave us was a real sense of community, and you know, my immediate family or whanau and my wider whanau are still big parts of my life today. So I'm incredibly proud of my roots, and I honestly wouldn't be here without the support of my family.
Hey, Bailey, it's that time of the show, but before we wrap up, we've got a bit of a challenge for you. It's called Pick Up the Pace Challenge. We do this every week with our guests. I'm sure you'll smash it. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask you one topic, and to that one topic, you're going to give us 9 answers in 10 seconds. So, for example, if I said to you, name for me 9 Super Rugby teams, you'd go through and say the Blues, the Chiefs, the Hurricanes. All right, are you ready, bro?
Yep, cool.
Going to get Anadu on the timer.
All right, yep.
Get the timer, bro.
Got the timer.
Hang on, can I just ask, what's the record? Who's got the record so far?
I think they only had maybe one. Who won it?
I think Wayne Smith.
Wayne Smith got it.
He was
No,
one of
I don't think Wayne got it actually. Let me think.
Jamie?
I was going to say no shot to beat the professor. So, Wayne Smith.
Oh, we had Lance or Hire on. I think he killed it.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I know Lani, so
Yeah.
if he's hopefully I'll be able to beat him. So.
All right. Here we go, bro. Bailey Mackey from Gisborne. Name for me in 10 seconds 9 current or former Maori All Blacks. Go.
Carlos Spencer, Leon McDonald, Rico Gear, Jose Gear, Piri Wepu, Luke McAllister, Liam Messam, Paul Tito, Carl Heyman, Corey Flynn.
There we go. You killed it, bro. You killed it. You've killed the whole show. That's it. You nailed it.
Did I get through 10?
Yeah. I think you got to like.
Yeah, the 10.
I
10
think,
seconds.
bro, to be honest, it's the fastest pick up the pace challenge we've ever had. So
That was in 8 seconds.
That was an 8.
Still had
Yeah,
2
yeah.
seconds to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I picked up the pace.
You nearly got to the reserves to the bench, bro.
Well, I just actually was thinking through that 2005 team that played the Lions. So
Yeah.
No, great work, Bailey.
no worries.
Hey, thank you so much, Bailey. Nō reira ko oti ngā kōrero i nai nei, kia haumaru tōno ho. Mean Māori mean, nā te wā.
Mā te wā. Kia ora.